Speedway 5 replacing the caliper brakes with semi-hydraulic brakes. And as you can see, we already have our beloved Speedway 5 up in the air on lift, and we've already removed the old brake calipers. So you can see we already have them removed, and we soaked them in penetrating oil, so that way we can remove the spacers and then move the spacers over to these brand new semi-hydraulic calipers we're going to use. The additional benefit of these semi-hydraulic calipers is they actually have a wider pad. So the actual pad that is contacting the disc is wider, and they are semi-hydraulic, meaning that they adjust by themselves. So instead of having to do the screw adjustment in the back all the time, I can just allow the brakes to adjust themselves. The first step is to remove your brake caliper from your scooter, right here with a 5mm hex, just like we have here. I'm using a ratchet and a T-handle to remove my calipers. These brake pads have a higher surface area, meaning they are actually wider pads. These are the pads for the original braking system. And as you can see by the retainer here, the new brake pads are wide and square. They have a larger surface area than the original brakes by at least 2 times. And they are semi-hydraulic adjustable, meaning that I will no longer have to take the brakes off and adjust the back screw to adjust the inside pad. That will be done automatically with the semi-hydraulic X-Tech system. With the old braking system, it was required to tighten this nut, which is kind of hard to see because it's very dirty, and then you have to secure it with Loctite to make sure it doesn't pop back out. But what happens is that over time, in a month or so, you'll have to adjust the brakes and adjust them again and adjust them again. It's just a very labor-intensive process, which I'd much rather use this semi-hydraulic brake by X-Tech. That's going to give our scooter double the braking power and semi-hydraulic brake adjustment. And as you can see here, the braking pad surface area is twice the surface area of the original circular pads that came with the scooter on the original braking setup. So we're going to get much greater optimized braking. And so now you can see we have the caliper mounted, the X-Tech caliper mounted onto our Speedway 5. And basically we did some adjustments by removing shims and getting the, basically you want to get the pad, as much pad to contact your disc as possible. So I adjusted my brake setup and got this to be as close as possible to the disc. So that way, it still has freedom of movement, but I have the best possible control. And so now I have about twice as much pad in contact, and even though there's a small margin of the pad that's not touching, the majority of the pad is touching the disc, and that's what you want to do. Adjust your brake setup, the shims, so that when you look at the actual pad and you spin your disc, that it's actually in the center of the, see how it's in the center of the pads, and also that the pads contact as much of the surface area of the disc as possible. And these are the X-Tech semi-hydraulic brakes for the Speedway 5. Now we'll go to the rear and add the rear brakes. And now we flip the scooter around and we're going to go ahead and attach the, here's the mount for the brake caliper. We're basically going to go ahead and mount this caliper. We're going to leave it just like it is there. So that way we get the actual brake disc as far in to the slot. And now you can see before I actually thread the cable that I have the brake caliper mounted. And I have it mounted, and you see I have it right in the center with basically, see the disc is right there in the center with as much of the pad making contact with the disc as possible. And you want to make sure that it spins freely. You see how the disc spins freely? And it has a little bit of space on both sides. It's about even. And that way the hydraulic caliper will operate properly and won't overextend on one side or another. And now we're going to go ahead and button it up by threading the cable. Now we have the rear X-Tech semi-hydraulic brake caliper fully installed. And we've checked the brake tension. We've set the pad to be right in the center of the disc and getting as much of the disc in contact with the pad as possible. Now we'll turn on the scooter and give it a try and see how it performs. That one looks great. And now we'll check our new rear caliper. That one works great, and you can hear that there's no scraping noise that would indicate the pads were misaligned. And that is how you add the X-Tech brake calipers to the Speedway 5. And now that our semi-hydraulic X-Tech brakes are installed, we're going to go ahead and take this little Speedway 5 for a ride around the block.